Let's speak to Harry Cole, political editor at The Sun, who's in Washington to see firsthand what is going on there. Harry, good afternoon to you. We know Mr. Starmer, kicked it all off with a bit of a meet and greet over there at the ambassador's residence. A few wines were had and the vol-au-vents were passed around, and Peter Mandelson got a gentle, humorous kicking. But the real work starts in a few hours.
That's right. Keir Starmer's here. He landed last night, as you said, hit the diplomatic circuit pretty hard, laying on the charm, meeting a few of Trump's sort of White House officials and cabinet ministers and politicians who are all at that bash. He got there pretty late, but there was quite a good reception for him, I thought. Lots of Americans turned out. The sort of special relationship the government are keen to stress is strong. But look, the stakes could not be higher for this afternoon's meeting. Keir Starmer's currently holed up in briefings, preparing for his, what could be a make or break conversation for him. The US president is notoriously temperamental. That said, when he does seem to take a shine to someone, he can be incredibly charming. So it's a fine balance that the Prime Minister's got to take. Number 10 people around Keir Starmer saying, look, he does have a good relationship with him, which means he can actually give him the hard truths, tell him things where they disagree without it descending into an almighty Barney. Now we'll see if that genuinely happens. There are a lot of flashpoints that could come up in the next few hours. Anything really, from obviously the differencing positions on Ukraine. Obviously Starmer got his punches in early with that defence spending uplift earlier this week. Some people say too little, too late. Other people say, it'd be a no-brainer not to walk into that meeting today without saying, yeah, look, I hear you. We are listening to your calls that Europe needs to spend more money on defence. But there's some quite knotty issues about, the Ukrainian peace deal, how it would be policed. Would it be British troops? Starmer's going to say, look, it has to be a credible deterrent or Putin will just come again. So it needs American might behind it to obviously the Chagos issue, though. Government here, Brits here are desperately trying to play down that the Americans actually care that much about Chagos. We'll see whether that's true or not later today. Then there's lots of other things, slightly broader about the tariffs. Donald Trump threatening again yesterday 25% tariffs on the EU. Will Brexit Britain be able to escape that at a time when Keir Starmer is trying to pivot back towards the EU, take us more closely aligned to Brussels once again? Will that have an effect on it? Then there's the row going on between Apple and the British government, US tech firms and the British government. These are big sort of jewels in the American economy's crown. So Donald Trump will want to protect those. So lots of places they could fall out yet. So we're on tenterhooks. Oh,
I guess the bit that they don't want to happen is Donald Trump just going rogue and saying, Keir, there's a lot of weird things going on in your country right now. You're jailing people for tweets. You've got all this, happening in terms of DEI, and, you've got uncontrolled immigration issues. Because you can kind of imagine, Harry, Trump doing that.
You could. I know if you look at his Vice President, J.D. Vance, who did just that at the Munich Security Conference a couple of weeks ago, where he said, look, Europe is in retreat on free speech, on migration, and all those issues. These are clearly, these were talking points in the US campaign. These are issues that the president is acutely aware of. Obviously, we've got now the extraordinary situation we're seeing this morning where the right-wing influencer Andrew Tate, who's been held up on charges in Romania, currently on a jet heading for the United States. It's been reported that was with the help of the United States government to get him out there. Now, Andrew Tate is wanted on rape charges and human trafficking charges in the United Kingdom. We have an extradition treaty with the United States. Will Keir Starmer ask for Tate to be sent to Britain to face charges? That could be a big flashpoint. Or, as you say, will the president voice his concerns, perhaps, about some of the things he's talked about two-tier justice in the United Kingdom, censorship, lack of freedom of speech? So, yeah, that's definitely another flashpoint, and one I think that would be at the higher end of the sort of disaster scale of number 10 planning for this, if it does end up into being a sort of more of the things that sort of Elon Musk has been tweeting about for the last few months, grooming gangs and that sort of there are lots of very knotty issues that could come up that Starmer will be desperately trying to avoid.
And in terms of the chronology or the choreography of how this all pans out over the later this afternoon UK time, so they meet in the Oval Office. They have one of those weird kind of Macron-esque sort of handshake things where you intertwine your hands. Is that right?
Well, I don't think Keir Starmer is quite as touchy-feely as President Macron, and the sort of officials here have been slightly guiding that he won't be doing a sort of similarly dramatic overture towards Donald Trump. He'll do it in his own way. He said, look, they're playing up the fact that they do have a good relationship already. So allegedly, they've met a couple of times. So yeah, they'll have a one-on-one. I think they're actually going to have a genuinely one mano a mano conversation for a brief amount of time. Then obviously various officials will join them for the tete-a-tete, as they call it, and then then we'll see them in the Oval Office. We'll get the chance to throw some questions at them. The Americans call it rather affectionately a spray, which is a uniquely Americanism, I think, of basically a load of journalists shouting as many questions as possible in a short amount of time. Now, when I've done these things with Joe Biden before, Boris Johnson and the like, Rishi Sunak, and the Biden administration kept Joe Biden, for obvious reasons, as we remember, on an incredibly tight leash. Whereas Donald Trump's been a bit more willing to, he's already answered 1,000 questions since he's been president, since January the 20th, which is more than I think Joe Biden answered in 4 years. So there's lots of opportunities for us to get our points across and hear what they have to say. And then they'll go away and have lunch together, a couple of hours of sort of meetings talking about Ukraine and the like, and then we will see them for a formal press conference, which again, traditionally these diplomatic things can be quite staid, one or two questions from either side, whereas Donald Trump's been more willing to free flow. So if we don't come back with a story from this, then I'll be very surprised.
Yeah.